Hey there, fellow nerds and geeks. Welcome to another episode of Life is Laughable, the podcast where we dive into the world of video games, comic books, and all things nerdy with a sprinkle of humor and a whole lot of heart. Join your host, Patrick, and today we're taking a trip down memory lane to reminisce about the good old days of gaming and what got us hooked in the first place. But that's not all. We'll also be chatting about the upcoming conventions as well, where you can catch me, hustling the brand and connecting with amazing people like you. So grab your favorite retro game controller, sit back, and let's get this nostalgia train rolling. Ready? Let's go.
Here, we're gonna go on a bit of a nostalgic trip down memory lane where it all started for me, as far as the pinnacle of gaming, video gaming. We're gonna go back to the 70s into the 80s. The 70s, where I first started doing gaming, was my first introduction to gaming, I would say, was the Pong gaming system. Now, there was different variations of it. I believe the one my father bought was the actual Pong system, and I think it was a Sears and Robux Pong system, I guess, because there was different brands back in the 70s, but that was like the pinnacle of gaming for me. With my family, my cousins, it was just something about watching those two sticks, being able to bounce them up and down, and that little square ball that represented like a hockey puck or a basketball. You know, that was like the pinnacle. And then you had those, I don't know what you would call it, but it was like an overlay. Like it was a thing that would go on the screen, basically. And for me, that was like the first start of pinnacle gaming for me. And I remember sitting there, my family at the time, we had one of those huge ass color televisions, but it was like the ones encased in the wood, and it had the speakers on the side. That's basically where it started. It was right there, you know. And that was like the pinnacle of everything, you know. And then fast forward to like the 80s, it got even better for me, because I remember one Christmas, my aunt, I wanted the Nintendo Entertainment System. I wanted it so badly. My aunt ended up purchasing it from a department store called Caldors. And the only reason I know that is because on the packaging, when I opened it, it actually said on there was a price tag on there. And well, actually the price tag was scraped off, but the tag was still on there, and it said Caldors Department Store. And for anyone who doesn't remember, Caldors was like a pinnacle of shopping back in the 80s. There was Caldors, there was James Way, Bradley's, like, they were stores. They were the stores that I would go to get my game on. That's where I would go to get games, you know. And even with that, you know, if I couldn't go there, it was local mom and pop video store, and they would have games that we would rent basically to play, you know. And that gave me the opportunity to try games before going out and purchasing it. So if I didn't like it, I wouldn't go purchase it, you know what I mean? But there was exclusive games that sometimes mom and pop video stores were able to get from Nintendo that only they had, you know. And like when those stores would go out of business or shut down, basically, you were able to go in there and able to purchase some of the inventory. And I was able to get quite a few games that they had. I remember one called Cobra Triangle. That was like the best game ever. I loved it. It was like a boat with the gun. I mean, that was sweet. But like Nintendo was the pinnacle in the 80s, you know, for nostalgia for me. And it was like you know, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just a better time back then. You know, nowadays when you go to the store, you buy a video game. There's a lot of games that you purchase, and it's like downloadable content. So you get a game that's sort of done, but not completely done. But later down the road, maybe months, maybe 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, there's downloadable content for that game, you know? And not that I don't like it, I just don't get it, you know? I mean, back in the 80s and the 70s, when we purchased a game, kids will never understand this. What came in that package is what we got. So if we didn't like what the Super Mario game that we had, you know, if we did not like the levels that were in there or wanted more, we had to wait until another version of that game came out, if they even did come out with another version of that game. And many a times, even currently, you know, there's lots of games that came out in the 80s that never got a rightful reboot as needed. Meaning the Mario franchise is always constantly getting a new game. Every year, there's new games coming out. I have a game that I fondly remember playing as a child, and I still own my copy. I remember my father, us going into a KB toy store, going there, looking at the rack of all the games, basically, and being told, oh, you can pick out one game, and you better make it good. So I'm looking at the shelf, browsing, I'm seeing all these games. And one game that stuck out to me was a game called Shattered Hand. By just the cover alone, I thought, oh, this will be a great game. My mind was blown when I got home and played this game. My mind was blown to the point that I couldn't believe it. That the Nintendo Entertainment System was capable. 8-bit graphics, 16-bit graphics. I could not believe these graphics. And this game, how it was capable of doing all the stuff that it did. And to my point, this game has yet, in my book, to get a proper reboot, whatever you want to call it, a new version of it for modern consoles. I love this game. This game was like the best game ever, but it's never gotten a proper reboot. You know, there's been other games like Strider that's gotten a reboot. The Metal Gear Solid, there's been reboots of that. There's all different games have gotten reboots, but this particular one, for nostalgia reasons, never got a reboot in my book, you know? But back in the 80s was the pinnacle of gaming for me. What I got in a box, there was no downloadable content. And mind you, manuals, that's a thing of the past. When I got a game, I enjoyed the manual, because when I was sitting in the car riding home, I could get a preview of what that game that I was about to play was going to be like. You know, flipping through that manual. You know, nowadays, there's no such thing as that. You're lucky if you get one sheet of paper in a book. I mean, it's just crazy, you know? But the pinnacle of gaming, you know, back then was like the 70s and the 80s. You know, me sitting in front of that television. I don't know if I spoke about this, but I would play my Nintendo Entertainment System with my father, basically. A lot of games we played was on an old school television. It was like one of those big ones that had the built-in speakers on the side. It was a wooden one. And then it had the big screen on it, basically. And we would sit there in my room countless hours playing games, you know, just making memories that I remember to this day, you know. I mean, this is just a nostalgic trip down memory lane. And as somebody who's a Gen Xer, I remember this fondly. You know, kids today, they will not even know what it was like as far as gaming. You think you have it, you got your Minecraft, your Fortnite, all that. No. We were the pinnacle. We were what I feel in my heart of heart. We were the ones that started this whole video game thing. 70s and 80s, you know. That was the pinnacle of gaming. And like I've said before, what we got in a box, that's what we got. If we didn't like that game, we were stuck with it, you know? And we dealt with it, you know? And there were some bad games out there. Yes, there were some very bad games out there, but, you know, it was a crapshoot when you would go to the store, you know? And it was just I feel the pinnacle of gaming back then. You know, it was the 70s and 80s. But I remember fondly so many trips to the stores. You know, being able to purchase games, you know, but when you would get something, you know, it was like, you better make it good because you didn't know if that game was going to be good or bad, you know? I mean, we didn't have review boards where we could go on the internet and find out about the score of a game, you know, how good it was, you know. We didn't have that back then, you know. We were lucky we had Nintendo Power Magazine, you know, and there were a few other magazines back then. But, you know, that was a rarity, like in my house, that was a rarity to get that because it cost money, you know. And being a single family income, you know, it was hard to afford things like that, you know. But shout out to my aunt, got me the Nintendo Entertainment System, it made my Christmas back in the 80s, you know. But it's just a nostalgic trip, you know. I mean, I can't say any more than that, but we're gonna call it a day here on this podcast. This is my first episode. I'm gonna try to do more episodes. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. I have tons of nostalgic stories as far as video games, comic books, etc. I'll be talking about them on here on this podcast. So please stay tuned. I'll also be letting you know of upcoming conventions and things where I might be at, trying to get my hustle on, you know. So stay tuned, please. And like I said, like, share, subscribe, and follow. And I want you all to have a super fantastic day. As always, keep it nerdy. Thanks, everybody.